Oh, right. What's up, everyone? So I had a couple of questions last night about some of the problems, not only in worksheet 4, but also the review. So I'm going to go ahead and go over just a couple of questions here, mainly about the coordinate geometry part of the review and the worksheet 4 here. Um, so remember here, the easiest way of doing this, and I showed you guys a different way during class, but the easiest way of doing this is by using slopes. We can identify whether something's a rhombus, a square, a rectangle, or a parallelogram, or if none of those, just a quadrilateral. So our first step every time is going to be to go ahead and just graph these points. So I'm going to go ahead and let's do number two. Let's do number two. Um, well, let's take a look. So 1, 7. So I'm going to go ahead and graph 1, 7, and this is letter P. Then I'm going to go to 5, 9. 5, 9 is all the way up here, and this is Q. And then 8, 3 is right over here, and that is R. And then lastly, let's do red. Why not? 4, 1 is right here, and that's my last letter S. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just line these up, right? Connect them. It doesn't have to be super perfect, right? What matters are the dots more than the lines. Um, but you still want to be pretty accurate. All right, there we go. So now let's go ahead and figure out what this is. Well, remember that up here, we had to check a few things on the notes. Let's go in here. Um, we go to lesson 4 right here. We have to check our first thing is are opposites parallel? If they are, then they are parallelogram. If not, it's just a quadrilateral. If they were parallelograms, then we go to step 2. Step 2 tells us that if adjacent sides are perpendicular, it's a rectangle. That's right. If adjacent sides are perpendicular, it's a rectangle. And diagonals are not perpendicular, it would be a rectangle, right? So let me repeat that. If adjacent sides are perpendicular and diagonals are not perpendicular, then it's a rectangle, right? So if this is true and not the bottom, then it's going to be a rectangle. If the bottom is true, if diagonals are perpendicular and not the top, so adjacent sides are not, then it's a rhombus, right? So it's one or the other. If it's one or the other, so if it's a adjacent sides are perpendicular and diagonals are not, it's a rectangle. If diagonals are perpendicular and adjacent sides are not, it's a rhombus. Because if both are true, then it's a square, right? So let's go ahead and take that knowledge and apply it here. Where be at? There we are. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and check. Let's do the smaller sides first. I'm going to check the slope of PQ. And the slope of PQ appears to be 1, 2 over 1, 2, 3, 4. So that appears to be rise over run, so plus 2 over 4. So 2 over 4. And remember, we always want to go left to right, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. So 2 over 4 means this is 1 over 2. Perfect. All right, so we found our slope of PQ. Let's go ahead and now find our slope of SR. And PQ is this one, SR is this one, right? We're always going to read left to right. So S goes first, goes right towards the R. So my slope here is going to be up 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So up 2 over 4. So 2 over 4, which gives us 1 over 2. All right. So we found that PQ and SR are both have a slope of 1 over 2. So these are parallel. Wonderful. Awesome. Okay. So now let's go ahead and use find the slope of PS and QR, right? And that's going to be these two sides right here. So I'm going to write the slope of PS and the slope of QR. Let's find those slopes. Remember, we always want to go right, left to right. Because P is more left than S, we're going to go ahead and go down this way, right? So we're going to do down first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's minus 6 over 1, 2, 3 over 3. So my slope here is negative 6 over 3, which means that my slope is negative 2 or negative 2 over 1. Now I'm going to go ahead and place that over 1 there because it's going to be important later. But generally, you don't have to. Now let's go ahead and check the next one. Q is further to the left than R, so I'm going to start at Q. And now we're going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over 1, 2, 3. So negative 6 over 3 again. And we've already established that negative 6 over 3 is negative 2 over 1. Wonderful. So these are indeed parallel as well. Great. So we've checked our first step, and I'm going to go ahead and shrink this just a little bit. So my first step was checking that opposite sides are parallel. Because both opposite sides, right, my PQSR are parallel, and because PSQR are parallel, this is for sure going to be a parallelogram. So I'm just going to write a big red check, or let's do blue check mark right there, right? So for sure, this is a parallelogram. The next thing we have to compare is adjacent sides. So I'm just going to call this 2A. Let's look for the adjacent sides. Okay. Are those perpendicular? Well, let's take a look. So if I'm going to use PQ and PS, you can use any adjacent sides. I'm just going to use these two, PQ, PS. So PQ, so MPQ is 1 over 2. And PS, the measure of PS, is negative 2 over 1. Now remember, we know that things are perpendicular if they are opposite reciprocals, right? Opposite means that one of them is going to be positive, one of them is going to be negative, and they're flipped, right? They're flipped. So it looks like if we take 1 over 2, first we're going to go ahead, we're trying to find its perpendicular. We turn it negative, and then flip the 2 into 1, and that's exactly what we have. So that means these are perpendicular. So that means that adjacent sides are perpendicular. Here you only have to check one, right? We have established that that both sides are parallel or opposite sides are parallel. So if we were to check these, it's going to give us the exact same thing. This corner here, right between PQ and QR, same thing, and the same thing here. You only have to check one adjacent or one pair of adjacent sides. All right, so step 2 told us that these are true. So for sure, we're now up to this is going to be a rectangle. So now we're going to go ahead and check rhombus. Um, well, let's go ahead and do that. Now, again, why are we checking for both? I know this is going to be a rectangle, right? You said it. Well, remember that a square has all of the properties of a rectangle plus all of the properties of a rhombus. So it needs both. So we're going to check if it's a rhombus. And if it's not a rhombus, then it would be a rectangle. And if it was a rhombus, because now it has all the properties of rectangles and squares, this would have to be, or sorry, a rectangle and a rhombus. This would have to be a square. All right. So let's go ahead and check the diagonals. Go ahead and make this diagonal here. And I'm going to go ahead and make this diagonal here. Okay. So now to do this problem, let's go ahead and let me do different colors just so we know which ones we're talking about. Let's do green. Well, actually, let's do pink. Wonderful. All right. So it looks like we're going to have to find the slope of SQ, and we're going to have to find the slope of PR. All right. So let's go ahead and find our rise over run. Remember, we want to go left to right. S here is further to the left than Q. So we're starting at S. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it looks like we went up 8 over 1. So up 8 over 1 is my slope for SQ. And then we're going to go ahead and find the slope of PR. 1, 2, 3, 4. Down 4 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Negative 4 over 7. All right, we start with the left side. So we're going to have to go down 4 over 7. All right. Now here, although these are opposites, we've got a positive 8 over 1 here and a negative 4 over 7. The flipped version of, or the reciprocal of 8 over 1 would be 1 over 8. So these are not perpendicular. So here, these are not perpendicular, which means that for sure, this is a diagonal, right? It's one or the other. It's, in this case, it's a rectangle. So here, what I would say is this is a rectangle, and we just write that right here. Now I am running out of time, unfortunately, so I think this is just going to be one problem. Um, but the way we would do it over here on the review is if we take a look here, right? I did all the work. I know I did standing up earlier and yesterday. So I apologize for how messy it is. But this is number 17 on the review. We did the exact same thing. In this case, we found that these are parallel. Opposite sides are parallel, but adjacent sides are not perpendicular. So this was a big fat X. And we did find that diagonals are also, actually, we found that diagonals are not perpendicular either. So this was just a parallelogram. So what I would state in complete, I mean, in complete sentences, air quotes, what I would write here is something along the lines, and let me go ahead and use a text box because it'll be cleaner, right? I would say, maybe you can start it with because if you wanted, but you could say uh, TQRS are parallelogram is a parallelogram gram because we're going to say opposite sides are congruent or sorry are parallel, but adjacent sides. Did I not spell that right? I thought I did, but um, I might have spelled adjacent wrong. Adjacent sides are not, oh, I guess I did write it correctly, are not perpendicular, and diagonals are not perpendicular. Also, you could have said because opposite sides are parallel, adjacent sides are not perpendicular, diagonals are not perpendicular, TQRS is a parallelogram, right? So you could write it either way. It doesn't have to be exactly like this either, right? Obviously, as long as you're pretty much clear with your explanation here and tell me the three reasons, then you should be pretty much set. All of them should have around three reasons, right? Because you've got to at least check those three. Because if we get all those three steps correct and they are all true, then it would be a square. So otherwise, if it was just a quadrilateral, right, then you would say because opposite sides are not parallel, this is a quadrilateral, and then you're done, and you're pretty much done there. So give these a shot. The key is online, but if you guys need another video, I'll go ahead and create another one when I have a little bit of free time. All right, thanks a lot for watching.